I just wanted to know if she was cheating. That's why I hired Frank. He was the best in the business. A man who had seen everything. But when he called me at 3 a.m. sounding terrified, I knew this wasn't a simple affair. Now, Frank is missing, his car is abandoned, and my wife is sitting on our couch acting like nothing happened. I think I've made a terrible mistake. Frank's car was still running when I found it. Driver's door open. Headlights cutting through the rain. Windshield wipers dragging back and forth across dry glass with that slow rubber squeak that starts to sound human after a while. The strange part wasn't the car. It was the location. 2 blocks from my house. I remember standing there at 5:42 in the morning with cold rain soaking through my jacket while the engine ticked softly under the hood. There was a paper coffee cup in the holder. Steam still rising from the lid. He had been there recently. Very recently. Frank had called me 40 minutes earlier. His voice sounded wrong, tight, breathless, like he was speaking through clenched teeth. He told me he finally understood what my wife was hiding. Then he said something that didn't make sense until much later. He said he'd made a mistake watching her. Not because she was dangerous. Because I was. At the time, I thought he was panicking. I didn't understand why his tablet was smashed under the passenger seat, or why there were muddy fingerprints all over the inside of the windshield, or why my home security lights were already on before I got back to the house. Inside, my wife was in the kitchen making coffee, barefoot, calm. The low hum of the refrigerator filled the silence between us while rainwater dripped from my sleeves onto the hardwood floor. She looked at me for a second too long. Then her eyes moved toward the garage door behind me, like she was checking whether I came home alone. That was the moment I realized something inside my marriage had already collapsed. I just didn't know which one of us destroyed it first. My name is Christopher Hale, 38 years old, commercial insurance consultant, north suburbs outside Chicago. My wife, Natalie, worked in corporate accounting for a biotech company downtown. At least that's what I believed for most of our marriage. We'd been together 11 years. No kids. One golden retriever named Archie who slept beside the laundry room vent because warm air leaked through the floorboards there at night. Normal life. Quiet life. Or quiet enough that small changes became impossible to ignore. It started with her phone. Not secrecy exactly. Precision. Natalie began placing it face down everywhere. Kitchen counter. Bathroom sink. Nightstand. Then came the passwords. Then the late drives. At first, she explained everything before I even asked. Work audits, budget reviews, emergency meetings. People who lie usually offer too little information. Natalie offered too much. That was what bothered me. One night I woke around 2 a.m. because the bed shifted beside me. I heard the soft vibration of her phone somewhere in the dark bedroom. Not a ringtone. Just one short vibration. I kept my eyes closed. I heard her breathing change. Then the faint blue light reflected across the ceiling as she checked the screen. A minute later, she left the room. The hallway floorboards creaked twice. Then silence. I waited. Downstairs, I heard the sliding patio door open. Cold November air drifted faintly into the bedroom. I remember the smell of wet leaves. I remember thinking she sounded nervous while whispering outside. Not guilty. Scared. The next morning, she acted perfectly normal. Too normal. She made pancakes before work, kissed me goodbye, asked if I still wanted to visit Milwaukee for Christmas. But her coffee mug left a brown ring on the counter beside a folded receipt. Gas station purchase. Gary, Indiana. 11:48 p.m. She told me she'd worked late downtown. That receipt sat in my head all day like a loose tooth. 3 days later, I hired Frank. Frank Dorsey operated out of a second-floor office above a pawn shop near Cicero Avenue. Old leather jacket. Gray mustache. Smelled faintly like cigarette smoke and peppermint gum. He didn't talk like television detectives. Mostly he listened. I gave him Natalie's schedule, her license plate, photos, work address. He studied everything quietly while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Then he asked one question. Did I want proof of cheating? Or the truth? At the time, I thought those were the same thing. The first reports were boring. Coffee shops, parking garages, gym visits, one lunch with 2 women from her office. I almost called the whole thing off. Then, on the fourth night, Frank sent me a photo that changed the temperature of the entire story. Natalie standing outside an abandoned printing warehouse in Gary. Rain falling hard enough to blur the image. A black SUV parked beside her. 3 men in dark coats. No affection, no affair. Just a silver briefcase changing hands. Frank texted me right after. Your wife isn't sneaking around. She's working. I asked, doing what? He didn't answer for nearly an hour. Then another message arrived. Ever heard of Helixer Biotech? I had. Everyone in Chicago had. Federal investigations. Insider trading rumors. Missing financial records. There'd been a story on local news about a whistleblower disappearing 6 months earlier. Frank started getting nervous after that. I could hear it in the way he breathed during phone calls. He stopped emailing reports and switched to disposable numbers. One night he told me Natalie never entered the biotech offices during work hours. Not once. Instead, she spent most afternoons driving between parking structures, storage units, and hotels near O'Hare Airport. Always carrying the same silver case. Always meeting different people. Then he said something else. Something small that stayed with me. He told me nobody ever touched the briefcase. Not even her. They only exchanged it. Like the contents mattered less than possession itself. That same night I checked Natalie's closet while she showered upstairs. I wasn't proud of it. The bedroom smelled like steam and her expensive cedar perfume. Inside a shoebox beneath winter sweaters, I found 6 burner phones wrapped in rubber bands. Every one labeled with dates. My hands started shaking. I powered one on. No contacts. No photos. Only a single voice memo. 32 seconds long. Mostly static. Traffic noise. Then Frank's voice. Very faint. He sounded terrified. He said my name once. Then he said, he already knows. Not she. He. That was the first moment I considered the possibility that Natalie wasn't the center of this story. Just part of it. Frank called me at 3:07 a.m. 2 nights later. I still remember the digital clock glowing red beside the bed. Natalie was asleep next to me, or pretending to be. Frank whispered so quietly I could barely hear him over traffic noise. He said he found the people Natalie worked for. He said Helixer had been laundering money through shell companies using fake accounting departments. Natalie handled transfers between executives. Courier work, illegal payouts, corporate blackmail. Then he told me he'd photographed something huge. A meeting involving federal investigators and Helixer executives together. That was the part that scared him. Not corruption. Coordination. He thought someone inside law enforcement was protecting them. He asked me to meet him near Navy Pier before sunrise. Then his voice changed suddenly. Sharp inhale. Car door slammed somewhere nearby. He whispered, "She's there." The call disconnected. I drove downtown immediately. The roads were empty and slick from rain. Chicago looked hollow before dawn. Just orange streetlights reflecting across wet pavement. Frank never arrived. At 5:42 a.m., I found his car outside my neighborhood instead. Engine running. Tablet smashed. His backup camera hidden beneath the dashboard. I took it before police arrived. I didn't call anyone. That decision still bothers me. I checked into a roadside motel 20 miles away and watched the footage alone. Cheap air conditioner rattling beside the window. Smell of bleach and old cigarettes trapped in the carpet. The footage showed Natalie entering the Gary warehouse again. This time clearer. Inside were executives I recognized from news reports. One federal prosecutor. 2 men wearing security earpieces. And Frank. Alive. They dragged him into the room. Natalie spoke to him calmly. I couldn't hear words. Only fragments under the camera distortion. But I understood enough. Frank had been caught following her. Then the footage shifted. One frame froze my blood. Natalie pointing directly toward the hidden camera. Toward Frank. Toward whoever would eventually watch this footage. Then the screen went black. For almost an hour I sat there convinced I understood everything. My wife worked for dangerous people. Frank disappeared because he uncovered corruption. I was collateral damage. It all fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Because one detail refused to leave my head. Frank had said, He already knows. Not they. Not she. He. I went home that afternoon. The house smelled like tomato sauce and garlic bread. Archie barked once when I opened the door, then immediately backed away from me with his tail lowered. Animals notice tension faster than people do. Natalie stood at the stove stirring sauce slowly while soft jazz played from the kitchen speaker. Completely calm. No panic. No fear. She looked tired more than anything else. There was a manila folder sitting on the counter beside her wine glass. My name written across the tab. I noticed then that all the kitchen clocks were wrong. Microwave, oven, wall clock. Every one exactly 17 minutes ahead. At first it felt meaningless. Then I realized Frank's last phone call timestamp also had a 17-minute discrepancy compared to my car dashboard. Somebody had altered time records, not accidentally. Carefully. Natalie slid the folder toward me. Inside were photographs, not of her, of me. Hundreds. Parking garages, restaurants, hotel bars, me meeting women, me handing envelopes to clients, me entering buildings I didn't remember visiting. At first, I thought they were fake. Then I saw the dates, spanning 4 years. My stomach dropped. I knew those places. I just didn't remember why I'd gone there. That's when Natalie finally told me the truth. Not directly, never dramatically. She simply showed me a medical invoice buried in the folder. Neurological treatment. Memory stabilization therapy. My name. 3 years earlier. I genuinely had no memory of it. The room started tilting. Natalie explained that Helixer wasn't laundering money. They were testing behavioral conditioning on corporate consultants with high-value access. People like me. People trained to move information without fully understanding what they carried. Courier work hidden inside ordinary business routines. Encrypted financial transfers. Blackmail material. Corporate espionage. I had been doing it for years. And according to Natalie, I agreed to it voluntarily after gambling debts nearly destroyed us. The problem was the memory treatment. Parts of my life had been intentionally erased afterward. At first, I refused to believe her. Then she showed me security footage from our own garage. Me removing burner phones from my briefcase. Me screaming at her. Me begging her not to let them take more memories. The footage timestamps matched the missing periods in my calendar history. My legs felt numb. Everything inside the marriage suddenly rearranged itself. Natalie wasn't hiding a double life from me. She'd been managing mine. Then she told me what happened to Frank. He discovered the program. But he also discovered something worse. I wasn't just a participant. I helped recruit people into it. The final piece came from Frank's damaged tablet. One corrupted video file survived. I watched it alone in my office after Natalie went upstairs. The house was silent except for the dishwasher humming in the kitchen. The video showed Frank confronting someone inside the warehouse parking garage. At first the angle was too distorted to identify the man. Then he stepped under fluorescent lighting. Me. Not recent me. Older footage. Different haircut. Heavier face. But unmistakably me. Frank asked why Natalie was involved. And I answered him calmly. I told him Natalie was never an operative. She was oversight. A spouse assigned to monitor cognitive decline in participants after memory restructuring. Frank asked if I knew what the program was doing to people. I told him yes. Then Frank asked the question that changed everything. He asked whether Natalie knew I remembered more than I pretended to. Silence. Even through corrupted audio, I could hear air moving through the parking garage vents. Then Video Me smiled. Not nervous. Not confused. Certain. And he said something that hollowed me out completely. He said the memory treatments were never for me. They were for Natalie. According to internal records, she tried leaving the program twice. Each time, her memories were partially reset. The version of our marriage she believed in had been rebuilt over and over to keep her compliant. That explained everything. Her calmness. Her rehearsed routines. Her desperate need for normality. She wasn't manipulating me. She was trapped inside a life designed by people who use both of us. Then the second twist arrived. At the very end of the file, Frank asked why he was being told any of this. Why reveal it now? The older version of me stared directly into the hidden camera. Into me. and answered immediately. Because if this recording exists, it means I decided to remember. The file ended there. No struggle. No disappearance. Nothing. Just black screen. I sat in darkness for a long time listening to the refrigerator hum downstairs. Then I noticed something cold settle into my chest. Frank never vanished because Natalie silenced him. Frank vanished because I did. And somewhere inside all the memories they failed to erase. I already knew where the body was. That was the night I realized I was the one she was supposed to fear.